up? It's Jenn and Julien. You're listening to episode 39 of X Appeal. And we are talking about, college. Hey, college.
Hey, college, yeah.
College. Oh my God, guys. Let's go out. Let's get crazy.
Where'd you go to college?
What?
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Ohio University, which is a party school. It's always notoriously on the top 10 party schools in the country, in the U.S., but I wasn't doing any of that. I was doing some of it, but not anything nuts.
You weren't partying?
I didn't party that much in college. I wish I did. Looking back on it now, I kind of missed the boat. But yeah, I didn't do much partying. I got a 4.0 my first semester of freshman year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And by the way, guys, if you hear some pounding in the back, it's because
you hear it.
I did a little bit, but I just want to let them know there's a bit of construction in Jen's.
So this is awful.
We'll stop soon, yeah.
This is awful. I live in Playa Vista, and they're doing major construction on my building. They have been for months. They're jackhammering my walkway, and they're demolishing my balcony and the balcony above us. So it's been a real treat.
I told you to come record here.
I'm literally going to stab somebody, but
come over.
We'll save that for a different day. Huh?
Come record at my house.
I might have to.
Honestly, on your way, we'll do what you used to do when we first started. On your way back to work, you stop by for an hour, we do a recording, you're out.
Yeah, but we have the nanny, and I don't want her to stay late because she lives far away, and she hits traffic. And I'm considerate of other people, Julien.
It's one extra hour.
You
guys can afford it. One extra hour.
Oh my God! Wow. No problem. We're not making any money in this podcast, so as soon as we start making money, then I'll be staying. I'll stay as late as you want.
You're dating a doctor. You're not even dating anymore. You're in a relationship with a doctor, and you're a TV host. You make good money.
You're still dating even if you're married. By the way, you should always be dating.
You should always be dating, of course.
ABD, always be dating.
ABD, yeah.
Anyway, back to what I was.
You weren't partying and fucking.
No, I wasn't doing any of those things. I had some, I had some parties here and there. I went to some parties. But not that often.
Did you ever go through a hoe phase?
Yes. Now, that was right after I got divorced. And I moved to New York.
Like random one night stands, random hookups, or was it?
I told you, in New York, whenever I was in my 30s, I would scroll through Instagram, picking out models and
Oh yeah, I remember you had a little.
It was like I was doing shopping. I was shopping for.
Were you smashing?
Shopping for men. Yeah. Is that what they call it? I thought that only Jersey Shore kids called it smashing.
No. I was just trying to be gross.
Yeah.
Were you banging them?
Yeah.
So what was the process? So you had a hoe phase, not during college where everybody has a hoe phase.
No.
After as a crisis.
I would say for most of college, I was still a virgin.
No.
I lost it at 21. I thought I told you this.
At 20?
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Oh my God! Well, I forgot.
I was very demure.
Forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And wait, wasn't your first time not fun?
Because you said you were 14 when you.
I wasn't 14. I was 16.
Okay, close.
And actually the first time I tried to have sex, it was terrible. The first time I was too stressed, so I couldn't get hard. And then the second time we tried my girlfriend, I was so stressed to get hard that I actually came in my bed right before we even had sex during foreplay. So my first two attempts were the most horrifying ways to do it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Eventually, thank God I pulled through. But my poor girlfriend, because she had sex with one guy before with her ex. So I wasn't her first, I was her second, and she was my first, and I was just so stressed.
Isn't she the sex therapist now or a sexologist?
Actually, sex therapist.
I bet you've come up in conversation quite a bit, I'm sure.
Oh my God. It was so funny. Yeah, she reached out to me. We're in really good terms, obviously because we were 16. But and she reached out, and because she had questions about podcasts and like how we did ours and all that stuff. And I know we were looking to get a sex therapist in, and one of the friends who we both follow each other is like, why don't you get Gabby in? And I was like, oh my God, like a podcast with Jenn and my first girlfriend.
Let's do it. Sign me up. Bring it on.
Anyways, I just the thing like, no, I'd rather get
all the way. Oh, I'm in. Tell her I'm in.
I'm not. So, but wait, wasn't your first time bad?
My first time was
hurtful, or
it was But I will say this: I literally did feel like a different person
after.
I felt like a woman afterward. I was like, I have arrived. I went.
Were you horny though before you were 21? Were you just flicking the bean all day?
No, you know what it was? I had something that a lot of my other girlfriends did not have anymore, and a lot of guys wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I kept my virginity. It wasn't like it didn't have anything to do with morality or anything or religion or anything, my upbringing, like nothing. I just thought I'm just going to hold off as long as I can because you can only lose it once. And I think I picked the right person. He was
So what were you doing up until 21? Were you not sexual? You had no sexual
desire? I would just do like everything but.
With a guy?
No, with farm animals. Like, what do you?
I'm saying, were you just like masturbating yourself, or were you just trying to do other stuff?
You can be sexual with somebody without having sex. You know.
I hear you. My question is, were you masturbating?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why is that important?
Because I wanted to know if you had that like libido.
Urge?
Like, still like, yeah.
No, I'm not. I wasn't like Mormon until I.
No, I hear you. But like, for example, guys, before we have sex. When we're like 14,
that's because guys are different.
We're just horny without even knowing what sex is. I was wondering
you have to. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I heard that you have to release or it gets painful.
Yeah. I mean, if you haven't done it in a long time, but
right?
Every guy's different. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. Eventually, like if you haven't released it in like 10 days, you could start to feel a little heavy.
And then you guys like pop owners in class when you were 12 years old. So,
exactly.
That's what I know. I know.
You experienced horniness without knowing what sex was, right? And only like masturbation. So I was wondering, is you as a woman without knowing what sex was, if you experienced what horniness was? That was my question.
Of course. What do you think? Yes.
Okay. So Jenn has a high sex drive. Good to know.
I mean, not high, but. I'm a human being. What?
This question was asked to me. It's like I was asked if I was considered to have a high sex drive. And I was like, oh.
Are you? Do you?
I think I'm average.
Average?
Yeah, I think it was.
You're average
I go in waves. I go in waves. There's like a month where I'll be hornier and then a month where I'm not. And then obviously when I was younger, I was. But then I talked to like my boys and they're fairly similar to that. I think, it's like once you hit 30. But then I also hear about guys in their 30s that are just horny all the time. So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it depends on the person, whatever. I'm not going to say it's a male female thing. We've already had conversations about this before, that sex drives can be equal. I think that men, maybe they're driven by sex a little bit more than women might be in general. I'm generalizing. Okay, so let's
talk really quickly about college.
Okay. So my college experience sexually, I really can't say because it wasn't toward the end of college that I had sex for the first time. But yeah, I would hook up with guys. There was always an element of danger involved because, being a woman, like you have to kind of protect yourself. But I don't know, what was your experience like?
I mean, I was partying all the time. Most of my college years, I was a full-time student going out. And when I wasn't going out, I was working as a bartender in this very popular venue in Montreal. So I was out, and I had a girlfriend throughout some of my college years. And when I wasn't, I was definitely hooking up.
Okay, so normal. But here's the thing. Were you in college when dating apps were around or popular?
They weren't popular now.
No, at that point they were probably like stranger on the internet. Like, let's go hook up.
No,
right?
yeah, you would just go out to the bar in the club, and
Yeah, that's exactly what. Same. I mean, yes.
And like friends, you go to the club, and we had all these techniques. It's like, oh my god, like, you have a table with one bottle, and you're like 20 guys splitting a bottle because you're poor, and then you gotta like, figure out like, where do we get the girls? Oh, these girls are dancing. Let's go like dance with them and bring them. Let's go tell them we have a table. Like all that.
Yeah, that was the best. I do remember. I look back on that with pretty fondly, like bumping into a dude like in line at the bar. Like, I don't know. It was fun. It was fun. It was you went out not knowing where the night would take you.
Yeah, I think when at that age, when I look back on it, I think it was fun, but there's definitely this worry all the time for me as like a college student, because it's like, well, I don't know, you're just not so sure of yourself. There's all the college guys, and these guys are bigger, and these guys are smaller, and these guys are smarter, and this guy's studying this, and this guy comes from this family, he has way more money, so he has a bigger thing.
Well, your thing that you still get hung up on, even in your adult life now, was happening back then too.
That back then was way worse. Now it's fine.
Yeah, you kind of come into your own as you get older.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I remember like if we went out and went to the club and like bought a bottle or two, and some of us would go home alone, that was considered like a failed night. Even if you have to like bring at least, or if you had like a fuck buddy, or if you had something like, it's like you kind of.
No, I will. So, but it gets dangerous if you're a woman. I will say this, because I remember freshman year, I went to a frat party with a group of girls who I didn't know that well, because, again, freshman year, you start living with people who you don't know. And they got pissed because I was getting a lot of male attention, and they left me alone at a frat party. And I remember being, again, you're also like not well, like you don't know how to drink yet. So I drank way too much. I was blackout. I walked back to my dorm room with a guy I had just met at the frat party. And the next morning I was locked out of my dorm room. And when I finally was able to get in, I found all these creepy Post-it notes, like all over like my bed, like the sink, like everywhere, like little like love notes. And I'm like, what? And I still to this day don't know what happened.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but that's, yeah. So I do look back on it. It was a fun time, but it was also, you kind of think, oh, well, I'm lucky to have made it out without something bad happening. I hate to say that.
Yeah, and the college kids, when I remember, I always thought I would spend my, 18 is the majority in France, like where you become an adult.
Yeah.
I always thought I would spend my 18th birthday with all my childhood friends and my family. And then I moved to Montreal to go to college 2 weeks before I turned 18. So I got into the dorms. I didn't know anyone. It was my 18th birthday. So I planned like this night out at this club, not really knowing what the club was or whatever. And, people from the dorms that I've met were like, yeah, let's go celebrate, whatever. So I got a table. I remember we ate Mexican food at this like cheap Mexican food. And then we did to the spot. And it was like the first time too that I was used to the French drinking way, which is we kind of sip and, slowly take it. Like I had been drunk before, but I never like that. And then for the first time I was introducing of the like US way, American way of drinking, which is like you're chugging a fucking huge glasses of alcohol. And I literally stayed 20 minutes in the club. We got there at like midnight. At 12:30 I was out because there's pictures of me passed out on the table that I still have. And then they took me out. I puked all the rice from the Mexican food on the street. And then I don't remember anything. All I remember, and then I woke up the next morning in my bed, and I had a roommate in my thing who we, is not like my best friend. He's just like some random guy. And I woke up with drawings all over my face. Oh
yeah, that's a classic college move.
Yeah, so they draw all over my face, and then my roommate's this dude like like, I felt so bad. Like, some of your friends were there, they were drawing on your face. I was trying to tell them to stop, to just let you sleep, but you were like blacked the fuck out. And I guess they were playing games where they would take like a card, like a debit card, and swipe it on my butt crack to pretend like they were paying stuff. And this was things that I was told. Like, I don't remember a single.
Yeah. Why are guys so gross with each other like that?
Some of the guys are like, bro, you guys do this, and they're cracking
penises all over each other, and then like,
it's like, yeah, we did that. It was just funny or whatever. I remember I felt kind of like violated a little bit. I was like,
yeah, a little bit.
Start my teeth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wonder how college is now. It's probably crazy.
Well, we're about to find out. Because we're going to talk to Dr. Aditi Paul. She is dating and relationships researcher and professor at Pace University in New York. So let's welcome her in because she wrote a book on the subject. How are you?
I feel very intimidated because both of you are so gorgeous. I'm like,
speak for yourself. Thank you.
Loads of, I really tried. And that's very evident.
You look great.
Because I had to match the level of gorgeosity. But thank you so much for that.
Gorgeosity. I love that word. That's great. I'm using that.
Well, no, actually, thanks for reaching out. I know I got your email and I forwarded it to Sasha. And I was like, oh my God, that's actually perfect. I'm so glad you reached out because I think this Gen Z dating in college is actually fascinating.
Yeah.
It baffles my mind. I mean, the kind of language that they use, I really truly feel that you're from another planet and they're from another planet.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. But this was my attempt to like be sneaky in the most ethical way possible. That's why I'm like, I'm not going to pry into your lives, but like, I'll call it research.
Right.
So they were really, open and honest, and I can't wait to talk about them today.
Yeah. So how did you? Yeah. How did
these conversations that you would have with your students?
That's it. Like, how did you get the research to start? Like, you just sat down with them and were like, hey, tell me about your sex life, or?
I wish I could do that. With that, I think I would get a call from HR.
Right?
If I do that. But no, it started with me being very bored over the pandemic and getting really curious about this thing called a hookup. Because I don't know about you, but whenever students tell me, oh yeah, like I hooked up with somebody, I'm like, did you have sex or did you go for a study session at the library? Because I have, or both,
or they're studying something. Yeah.
I have no idea. So I looked up a couple of books on hookup, and there's this one book that I read. It's called American Hookup, The New Culture of Sex on Campus. And the way the professor and the scholar she was writing about hookups, it's basically what I was eavesdropping on your conversation before, and you were talking about, it's like that drunken haze, the party, the grinding, etc. And then I look at my students and they say that, Tinder is the go-to hookup app. And I'm like, so where is Tinder in this game? And that got me excited that, okay, now that we have a new player in the college scene, that is Tinder and Grindr and Bumble and the next app that came out yesterday, maybe, how are they changing the culture of sex on campus? And that led me to write this book.
Because it's almost like, and Julien, I don't know, both of us actually can say this, that we didn't have dating apps whenever we were in college.
Yeah.
Or, dating apps that were, I guess, mainstream accepted now, like Hinge and, et cetera. So I'm wondering how that's changed the landscape as far as dating goes with college students, because it just almost seemed like whenever I was in school, if you go to a bar, like odds are people there are single and they're looking to hook up. So what do you do? How has it changed things?
It has changed some, but then not a lot at the same time. One of the misconceptions that people have about Tinder is that it's only used for hookups. It's really not. Students are not they're not a bunch of creeps who are like, just let me log in and like find people to fuck. Like they're not doing that. What they're doing actually is just for entertainment. Like you're going to Tinder, it's almost like an Instagram where the only way you can like a picture is by right swiping. Mm-hmm. And if something comes off it, it's good. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And the least viable product that you can get out of a Tinder match is you probably like do some sexual things with them. And the reason I'm not saying sex is because a majority of college students are not having full-blown sex. They're doing something sexual. So they're like thirst trapping. They're probably like making out because they're still in their formative years of figuring themselves out. And now the cultural shift of Gen Z is, I want to know myself first. Forget about
really.
Look at the culture around us. Like, are you bi? Are you gay? Are you lesbian? What's your pronoun? There is this huge outcry about like, I want to figure myself out. And as they're doing that, sexual identity becomes a part of that. And the research shows that a majority of students just make out. And a part of that reason is they have a huge amount of dating anxiety. Like they have forgotten how to date, or they've never been taught how to date.
Yeah.
So that keeps them from like escalating things. Having said that, dating apps, if you do hook up with somebody on a dating app, you are statistically more likely to have riskier sex than if you meet somebody through school. So that's one way in which dating apps have changed.
You mean like because they feel like they know them already, so they're more comfortable to have unprotected sex?
What
do we mean by riskier?
Risky, unprotected sex, yeah. Okay. There's also a confounding variable over there where sexual orientation plays a huge role because the research that I did, I surveyed 318 participants across the US. And the reason why I said that it's not changed a lot, turns out that students still want to meet their hookup partners through like school or through friends of friends. That's the kind of setup they want to meet somebody they want to hook up with. And 25% met through dating apps. But out of those 25%, 60% were identified themselves as lesbian, gay, and bisexual.
Wow.
So the LGBT community is really using dating apps to hook up.
Because they're looking for people who are more like-minded, like themselves, or
yeah. I mean, our default is straight thinking, right? Like if you walk down campus, the default is a guy is going to like a girl. It's very hard to tell the orientation of a person by the way they're presenting themselves, and that the apps or the filters that the apps use, it makes it really easy for somebody to know that, oh, are you polyamorous, or are you do you like same-sex hookups? So that makes it more convenient. And historically, the LGBT community has defaulted to the online space because of different sorts of stigma that is there in society, even in the US, which is still very egalitarian, but there's still stigma associated with that.
Sure.
So I'm actually shocked because I remember talking to a relative of mine who's probably 7-8 years younger than me, and he had his first oral sex experience when he was 13. And when I was 13, I was at the skate park. I have never known.
That's true.
So,
you do hear about this. Yeah.
So to me, I was expecting kids like Gen Z nowadays to actually be hooking up left and right, whether it's with guys, girls, and having way more sexual freedom.
Yeah.
You seem
to have that.
And especially also if you look at what's influencing them, right? We're all influenced a little bit about what we're watching. I mean, I remember watching when I watched the first season of Euphoria, I remember one of the girls on Euphoria having sex behind like a dumpster at this the ferry park, right? Like
it's right. Euphoria
so
really.
Me, like if this is what high school is, I can't even imagine what college is. But you seem to say that it's actually going the other directions where people are actually trying to figure themselves out, and they're using the apps to do that, but not to actually go through with it.
Yeah. So the culture of acceptance is increasing, right? So when you're talking about euphoria, when you're talking about, doing oral sex at the age of 13, which by the way, Gen Z doesn't consider oral sex a sex, or even millennials. Like, so that when you ask people to report if you have had sex or not, they will not count that as sex.
Is it a hookup?
so I asked them particularly, and this is where I get like really super creepy in my survey. I'm like, identify all the sexual behaviors that you performed that night. Yeah. And then I go from like kissing and like breast simulation. Like I freak myself out with the kind of language that I used. And we went all the way to anal sex. And again, so it was not up to them to report, did you have sex or not? I asked them to identify they had oral sex or not. They are having oral sex, but here's the situation. The other day I was talking to my student, and then she said, you know what? What's the most intimate? And I'm like, what? And she said, maintaining eye contact. Like, I can kiss you, but I'm not going to maintain eye contact with you. And I'm like, damn. So you're willing to go down on somebody, but you don't want to make eye contact. So
while doing it?
What is that have to do?
No, but are we talking about eye contact, like just talking and staring at each other's eyes?
Yeah, like I told you, Jewel. Remember when we were saying recreate the intimacy, and I said staring into each other's eyes?
We're talking about making eye contact while going down on the person. That's my question.
That even kissing or just regular eye contact, like penis to vagina, okay, but eyeballs to eyeballs, whoa,
yeah.
So
too much is too much.
It's just that is the kind of commitment I'm not willing to undertake.
It's amazing what the lines are.
Yeah. So
but you're right because the word hookup is so broad.
It's so broad.
Somebody say, yeah, I hooked up with her. It's like, oh, you guys had sex? No, we just made out.
Yeah.
And then somebody would be like, yeah, I hooked up with her. You guys made out? No, we had anal sex.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay. So
it's so broad. Yeah. And not surprisingly, women are more likely to say hooked up versus identify the actual sexual behavior that they performed because of the sexual double standard that we live in. And even though when you're talking about, I heard Jenn say that, maybe men have a higher sexual drive than women. And that comes from this thing called the sexual strategies theory, which says, women, like, we are programmed to procreate. So we're looking for the best and the most fertile and the most healthiest partner. And for men, it's to increase their line of children, right? So they're looking for as many partners to procreate as possible. But with the cultural conversation, that theory has become outdated, where men and women, they have equal number of sexual partners. But where the sexual double standard still exists is the way women censor themselves to save themselves from being labeled a certain way. So when I asked students, like, describe to me what happened that night, because I was trying to figure out, like Julien was talking about, like, what happens in a hookup? Like, what the heck is the play-by-play? Like, in a date, you call somebody, you go pick them up, they go for dinner, things go okay, you go for a nightcap. So what happens in a hookup? And when I analyzed those answers, I saw women use terms like, one thing led to the other, and then it happened, and things progressed. Versus men, they said, oh yeah, I gave him head. We fucked. We had sex, and they would be very, very explicit and descriptive about that. So that just goes to show that things have like shifted, but not that much as we think it is.
Yeah. So, and that is true. There's a lot of stigma still behind the way we behave as women when it comes to hooking up. Like, it's probably part of the reason that I stayed a virgin, to be honest, through most of college, because I just didn't want to be labeled as a hoe or somebody who was just like super easy.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully that will change.
So it seems like that stigma. It seems like that stigma is still then actual. It's still happening.
Yeah.
However, you're saying that women are being a little bit more active than they used to be.
Yeah, because when I checked for like a statistically significant difference between the number of sexual partners that women had versus men had, there was no difference.
Okay.
So the behaviors are changing clearly, things like WAP and the slut walk by Amber Rose. These are working in our favor, and add to that the fact that women have medical advancements to their to their advantage, where you can have sex without thinking about the women, what they thought about during the times of Bridgerton. So like you can have sex if you want to, but in terms of like embracing it and talking about it, and not being implicated in a certain way for that behavior, we're still working through that as a society.
Mm-hmm.
And so did you find out that the apps, are students in college still relying heavily on going out to meet people, or they're mostly I know you kind of touched based on that a little bit, or are they mostly doing apps and then possibly going to meet the person they match with in person, or do they match with them and then they go straight to their houses?
There is a fair amount of talking involved. So when I ask them this idea that we have about hookups, right? Like this is this one person that you saw this random night, and then you got so freaking drunk that you cannot even remember their face, and you hooked up with them, and in the morning you have this walk of shame, and then you go. That is clearly not the case. Hookups are... That's not the way Gen Z is hooking up. It's so much more mellow, and I can read some of their responses later on if you'd like, because it's so chill, right? It's something that they do, but more than meeting people, what they are looking at is friendship-based sexual encounters. So when I asked them, how many mutual friends did you have mutual friends with somebody who you hooked up with? 75% of them said yes. So they're within their social network. So they're looking for a friend of a friend, not really keen on like a complete stranger who they hook up with. So they're looking for avenues through which they can seamlessly integrate both friendship as well as experimenting something sexual or having some sort of a sexual interaction with this person.
I feel like that hasn't always been the case, though, because, and I guess we have bringing more awareness to rape culture to thank for that. Now that we know it's something that happens way more often than we had thought, and people are more out in the open about it, I think that's kind of worked in people's favor to protect themselves maybe a little bit more.
Do you mean like the reason why they want to go with their friends to make sure that...
Because it's like they're already vetted, and they're in their circle.
See, that's another thing. This is something that I found was the most surprising result, which I did not intend to find out. I found out that 1 in 4 men were sexually assaulted during their hookup. And when I'm talking about sexual assault, I'm talking about lower order sexual assault. That is, they were touched non-consensually. They performed a certain sexual act to get out of another sexual act. So go down on somebody. And we're talking about straight men at this point. Yeah. And the highest chance of sexual assault was when they met somebody through school settings. So within their circle of trust.
Oh, wow.
Because if you look at sexual assault, that's the first indicator of sexual assault. That is, when 99 or 85% of the time, when you're talking about sexual assault, you're assaulted by somebody you know. It always shows up in sexual assault when you're looking at, and it skews highly toward women, and absolutely, legitimately so. But this was one of the studies where I'm like, oh my gosh, I honestly thought that I had the data wrong, because I went back and I'm like, did I code like men as women and women as men? Like, what is happening over here? And no, it is a fact.
So how does that work? I mean, it might be old school of me, but I feel like as a guy, you just, if you don't want to do it, you walk away. How does that work?
Yeah, but are you really surprised? Like, I'm just going to go back to what you said with that. You said that I felt kind of violated, right? Like that this guy would do this to me.
Yeah.
It happens in the same way when you're talking about male to female interaction, primarily, because our idea is, what are you complaining about? Like, you got sex, like, what's your problem, right?
Yeah.
So that's the narrative. It's almost like men can never be sexually assaulted in a heterosexual relationship, and B, the onus of asking for consent is always on
Women.
the male.
Yeah.
So, and then the third factor is we are teaching women to be sexually empowered. So in that drive of being sexually empowered and the absence of the conversation of them having to ask for consent, then who becomes the victim in this equation?
Right. It's no, like two
absolutely.
Together.
Are you able to, without being too graphic, walk us to like through an example of how that would happen to a man? Like what? To help me understand it in a sense, because I feel like the only thing I don't understand is like, as a man, if you are not consensual, there's a body part that needs to be aroused for it to happen. So if you're not consensual, how are you aroused at the same time?
So I asked them 6 questions, and these are all questions from a study that was done previously by NYU professors, and they measured sexual assault. In some questions, some of them are, did your partner touch you without your consent? So low order sexual assault, right? Still sexual assault, but really low order. Then you have questions like, did you have to perform oral sex on this person to get away from having actual, like, penile to vaginal sex with them? Okay. Or did this person have sex with you when you were inebriated? And did you touch this person non-consensually? So the research shows that not only have men experience sexual assault, they are also most likely to perpetrate sexual assault. So it's not like men are absolved. So they are the bullies and the being bullied, both at the same time. And the chances of sexual assault are higher when you are in hyper-masculine environments, like, fraternity or being an athlete. Because, patriarchal thinking hurts everybody, right? The fact that you're men and any sexual touch that you have, you should be thankful for that. Like, dude, you got some action. What the fuck are you talking about? Right? So that kind of thinking really takes away the power of this said individual saying that, no, like, this is my body. Like, you can't just like jump and pounce on me just because you're horny. So we really need to like get to a position to normalize that. And this in no way takes away the conversation from women being disproportionately affected by sexual assault.
So I also think that men are not as willing to report sexual assault as women are.
Because we don't identify that.
It's very surprising to me.
Yeah, if we don't identify something as sexual assault as sexual assault. And we do that to like almost save ourselves, because it's not just bad that we were violated. Now we have to come to this realization that, bro, I think I was raped though. That's a hard ass conversation to have. Especially if you're in a hyper-masculine environment.
Even as a guy, and you explain it, and I still have a hard time understanding how I can get sexually assaulted by a woman. I still have a hard time.
Yeah, now imagine a guy in a frat house saying, I got sexually assaulted, and trying not to get laughed out of the room, essentially.
Yeah. Like, why do you think, are you the reason why you think, I know you're saying that, listen, my dick needs to be hard for this woman to be able to fuck me. That's where you're getting at, right?
There would be 2. So there's 2 instances where I can understand it. The first one would be, I'm at a bar, I'm talking, whatever. We're talking I'm talking to a girl, and then all of a sudden she just grabs her hand and goes straight for the jewels, and she grabs it. Cool. This I could see. It feels like I just got assaulted. Sure, this I understand. The other one, which is the other extreme, was like, we're both in the bedroom, super intoxicated to the point that I have no idea what's going on, and then she hops on me and she does her thing.
Yeah.
But that's the only 2 that I'm kind of like, that I can't understand it happen. Anything in between where it's like, we're both in the room, we're both somewhat clear enough. I don't understand how in this situation I can be sexually assaulted, because if it's like, if it's pressure from my friend saying, wait, you get with this girl, you better have sex with her.
Yeah.
Is that technically considered a sexual assault? If he's performing an act under pressure of his peers?
I did ask that question. I said, did you perform this under pressure from your partner?
Your partner.
Right? Because sometimes, how many times a woman has said yes because this guy was persistent.
Yeah.
Right? And just because you've gotten a yes doesn't mean that this is consent, right? Like it's not that. And there's a formula for what is actually informed consent. And you're right, Julien. Those are the situations that we're talking about, because sometimes it's really hard for us to understand like what constitutes and doesn't constitute as assault. Because when you hear the word like assault, there's always some sort of violence. Idea that there's something violent happening, right? Like there's pressure, and like how can a woman even assault a man when a man has objectively higher physical power than this person?
Right.
But we're not talking about like coercion that way. We're talking about sexual touch and sexual performances that you did not say yes to.
Yeah.
And one of the factors is alcohol, because when you are hooking up with somebody you met through school, the students had a objectively higher level of alcohol consumption that they did not have in dating apps. So when you are having unprotected sex in dating apps, it's consensual. Like everybody is in their wits. And this conversation about like dating apps are dangerous. It's almost the same as, that narrative sells. So you sell that. But more than dating apps, what's happening within our circle of trust in school? Why are we not talking about that? And holding that accountable and making that normalized?
And that was actually one of the questions too that I was going to have. I feel like when I think about my college years, none of me or my friends were ever even remotely scared of being in a situation where we thought we were being assaulting.
Yeah.
We were assaulting someone. It's like, oh, we met at the club, we're all drinking, we're coming home. It's like there was never even a thought that the next day she would feel some type of way, or I would feel some type of way. That
that's pre-Me Too movement.
And that was the question I have is like, now that the Me Too came up and now we're way more alert about sexual assault, that even me as an adult now, I'm always extremely cautious about this. Do you feel like that has changed within Gen Z in the sense of like, there's maybe more talk about consent?
Yeah. The conversation is there. Just like, I think of it in terms of pronouns. We've always had pronouns, but the fact that I need to ask about a person's pronoun, that has become a part of the conversation, and that's normalized. In the same way, like, sexual assault, sexual consent was always there, but the conversation around it is become so dominant and it's drummed up so much that Gen Z is aware that, listen, there's such a thing called consent. Now, whether they practice it or not, or the right way to ask for consent or not, we have to get better at communicating that, because we as a generation are still figuring it out when we are rising up to the awareness that, oh, something happened to me. And now that the culture is talking about it, now, I'm basically describing the Me Too movement at this point. So I really do think Gen Z is better equipped at that. And I really do think online dating hookups could be safer in terms of safety from sexual assault compared to, at least for the first couple of dates, compared to somebody through your circle of trust. And the reason I say that is, when you're going through a dating app, think about taking a taxi versus think about taking Uber. If your Uber driver was rude to you or did something to you, you have the authority, i.e. Uber, to complain it to and hold this person accountable. But if a taxi driver was rude to you, like, who do you report it to? The city? Like, there's nobody to report it to. So with that, the fact that you met through Tinder or you met through Bumble, there are guidelines in Bumble and Tinder, which at least let you report this person. So whether that results into something or not, who knows? But the fact that it's there, that could be deterrent enough to keep people in their line. Yeah.
Would it be because I feel like if you're matching with a stranger, then you're automatically taking more precaution to be extremely safe?
Yeah.
Safer. Whereas if you met through mutual friends, it's like, well, they know each other. I don't have to be on my guard that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, like, when you're talking about being more safe, this is what somebody said, like when I asked them to like describe like what happened that night.
Yeah.
So this guy says, I texted him on Grindr. He was online and somewhat close. He answered and we liked each other. So we talked a bit, sent pictures of each other, planned to hook up that night at his house. I prepped shaving, condoms, lube, cleaning, etc. Then I took an Uber there. So just like the amount of planning that goes before you hook up with this person through a dating app, because you're not going from a 0 to 100. You're going from 0 to like Snapchatting them a little bit, sending some like boob butt pictures, and then like having thirsty ass conversations, and then like you vibe, like where this is going. So it's much more clearer where you're not just like assuming, oh my gosh, this guy looked at me different at a bar, maybe he's into me, and then you go for it.
Do you think that is true for heterosexual? In a sense, like I think like Jen and I have touched a little bit in a few other episodes about how the hookup culture within the gay community, men on men, is somewhat a little bit easier, and it just kind of like it just kind of works a little bit easier to do it. Did you find the same results from men to women, like that? In
terms of
like what you were describing about like the guy he matched with Grindr, they talked for a little bit, I see he prepped, and then after that he went to his house.
Yeah,
I feel like that is similar from a guy meeting with a girl. Like they send each other stuff, blah blah blah. She preps, she goes to his house.
There is a fair amount of planning that
both
yeah, there's a fair amount of planning, and talking about Gen Z, like showing us how it's done. The women also plan. They ask this person out, their partner, their male partner, out for a hookup or a date or whatever have you, when they're going through apps. So it's not always on the guy to like ask this girl out. The girl also initiates plans. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
What about getting into a a committed relationship for Gen Z or people who are in college? Because I don't know. I found it very difficult as a working adult to get into a relationship. So I can't imagine what it's like right now for Gen Z, because you hear like situationships and like all these terms for half-assed relationships.
That's truly it.
Yeah.
But also, you know what? Let me tell you something. There is a certain amount of pride that I've seen in Gen Z, people who are in a relationship, like they made it out in some way. Like they are the exception and not the rule. So whenever I ask students, and that's the reason why I did an anonymous survey, because I'm like, I'm not going to get shit out of these students if I ask them face to face. So like my students will always say, I haven't participated in hookup culture, but my friend. And I'm like, why don't you just say that you were thirsty one night? Like, let's just cut to the chase. But there is a certain level of like pride that, oh, I haven't had a hookup. I have a boyfriend. And then for people who are on the other spectrum, they're not having a hotation. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that they have all these kids to hook up with and they're just like having rabid sex. They're hooking up with the same person once a month, or in 2-3 weeks, they repeat that. And I asked them, yeah. And I asked them, like, listen, were you like on a scale of 1 to 5, how romantically interested were you with this person? And 75% said very, or like I was. So they want something there, but this conversation, or like to lock it in, they really are, Jen, what you're talking about, getting into situationships or lack of vulnerability and just
why is that?
Because I'm sure it comes back to what you were saying. They have dating anxiety. They don't know how to date.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to take it. The only way you take it, like, you could hook up with someone if you don't take that person on an actual date and do date and activities outside of the bedroom. You're never going to
don't know how to court each other anymore.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, you know what? They're doing all of that, but they just don't call it that. They're like, oh, I'm just hanging out. I'm just talking to this person. Oh, like they will literally say that they met up for coffee. They went to their dorm room. They put in a movie and they like chilled. I'm like, dude, like this is a date. Like you really are dating at this point, but they don't call it that. I just got too excited about that. It's like,
where does the anxiety come from? The dating anxiety that you mentioned earlier, because which podcast somebody said it, Jen? There's somebody who said also the younger generation have they're anxious about dating. I forgot.
Oh, it could have been Dr. Drew and his daughter.
I think it might have been that. So where does that come from?
There are so many reasons. Like I haven't measured them, so I don't know definitely what is causing dating anxiety. But again, going back to Gen Z being digital natives, and their digital footprints are permanent. So they're always thinking about the implications. Like we were dumbass children. Like we did dumb shit back in the day.
Yeah.
And there is no way anybody can go back and, find those. Like all three of us, I can confidently say, even without knowing you, that we would have been canceled yesterday.
1,000%.
But now Gen Z, being digital natives, they're so aware about their actions. They're so aware about the footprints that they leave. They don't have that ability to just like do whatever. So their actions have consequences. So that could be one part why they're just overall anxious, and dating anxiety is a part of that anxiety.
Are they also maybe a little unwilling to devote the time and the effort toward a relationship?
Absolutely. I really do think that. I mean, I was just reading something today, like the indicators of each generation, and Gen Z, one of the indicators is infinite possibilities.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Infinite possibilities. It's a bottomless pit everywhere, your Facebook scroll never ends, your Instagram feed never ends, your TikToks never end. Choices for partners will never end. So how do we lock into something? We cannot commit so much to subscribe to a fucking YouTube channel. Like,
right.
We can't do that. Sorry for the F word, but like
the attention span is like, it has diminished to the point where people are always looking for the next greatest thing to come along.
Yeah.
Well, I have this great person in front of me, but what else is out there?
It comes back to this notion of knowing a lot of people, but just feeling alone.
Yeah.
Because they know all these people. Are you able to maybe say, how do you see then relationship for Gen Z in 5-10 years? How do you think the relationship will be? Will it be like our parents? Or do you think because of all these, would there be maybe a reset moment where this generation is going to be like, this is too much, we need to stop? Just like I know some kids right now think it's cool if you don't have Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool
Everything
kids
old new again.
It's like, no, that's cool. I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're able to, but do you have maybe a little bit of an idea or what, how does that look for the future for them?
Yeah. Also, I just want to, I'm curious to know, would you identify yourself as millennials?
Yes.
What's millennial?
Millennial is like what, 1984 to...
It's a hard stop at 995.
So yeah, I guess millennial, yeah.
So at that point, we were so millennially, and we are, you know what? I mean, I don't know if I should use the analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. We are the taint generation, we're we know what life was like without options. And we know what life is with options. So we just don't know what is normal. So for us to make this judgment call of how Gen Z is going to be I'm not going to be that person to do it. But what I can tell you from what I have looked at thus far is just the way you were saying, Julien, that it's cool for them to not be on Instagram. And the reason I say that we're a teen generation, because we were foolish. When Instagram came out, I was posting every single day.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have stories. So we are doing full-on posts about that one leaf that I consumed today.
I posted it. I saw a penny on the subway and I posted that as a main Instagram post. I'm what was I thinking?
With filters. Let's not forget sepia tone. So we have done that foolishness, but Gen Z has grown up with that. So they are just you can't faze me. This is not new. So they have their factory settings is growing up with options. Yeah. So they'll figure out their own rules. because we are at a very big shift that's happening right now where we're going to unlimited everything. And Gen Z is far better equipped to navigate that landscape because they have grown in that landscape versus us. We are just transitioning. We just don't know. Like, so I would argue that it's harder for us to figure this out than Gen Z.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And it's so funny because we tend to, I catch myself saying things that my dad would used to say, you know, when I was like 16 or 17, and you're like, oh my God, you guys, like your generation and stuff. And
yeah. I see the same thing.
These Gen Z's guys, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so old now. I don't understand this, you know.
And you're only going to get older.
I know.
Listen, I mean, I'm just one slip away from being a boomer, and I'm okay with that. Like, I have just accepted that as my fate.
Which one's boomer? So boomer is our parents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's boomer, millennial, Gen Z?
Boomer, Gen X, nobody knows who they are.
Okay.
But sorry, my sister is a Gen X. Like, they're the silent generation. Like, they got no say in this mess that we have created for them.
Okay. And then it's millennial?
Then it's millennials, yeah.
And then it's Gen Z.
And then it's Gen Z, yeah.
Oh. Shit, man,
I'm very optimistic.
I do have a little more hope when it comes to Gen Zers because they seem like a lot more socially aware, culturally aware, you know, sensitive to other people's needs.
I agree with you.
Perspectives.
I agree, but I also, and I'm just going to be the bad guy here, I also feel like they're not as tough as our parents.
No, I agree with that too. Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of a victim state of mind, which to me and from what I've experienced is not a great way to get ready for your adult life because it's always the other ones, right? Like, and again, like I think the compassion and how open they are and the gender fluidity is amazing because it means everybody can feel like they have a place in this world.
Except if you're in Florida.
Yeah. But that mentality is also like the problem with that mentality is like if somebody misgender them for some reason, they automatically victimize it, right? Instead of just being okay with it and be like, oh, you made a mistake. That's cool. This is how and right. It's automatically like, oh my God, how could you call me this? I'm not a this, I'm a that. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's great because there's more compassion, but also it makes it for a little bit less, I want to say tougher people.
Well, there always needs to be acknowledgement that the world has to catch up. You know what I mean? Like a lot of in the generations before us.
You think a 60-year-old is going to catch up and is going to meet a 20-year-old in the supermarket? Is going to
no, and I know this.
I'm not going to do it.
It's the same reason I can't have conversations with my parents about certain things. You know, you just kind of acknowledge it and step away and understand that they're coming from a different place in a different generation with different rules.
Yeah,
exactly.
Gen Z is awesome. No, the one thing that I would say, which could delay their finding the one outside of all of this, is this hyper fixation with identity formation. And it's not to their fault, because the reason why we are not so hypersensitive about our identity is because we didn't have any platforms to show our identity.
True.
Like, we didn't have a TikTok, we didn't have a LinkedIn, we didn't have an Instagram where like this platform is for this aesthetic and like that platform is for that aesthetic. It was me and my parents in our living room. Like, that's it. You get it, whatever it is. So the idea that I'm trying to get to is like, they're so hyper fixated on creating who they are and being in this very navel gazing journey of like self identity that could keep them away from committing to somebody else, because like everybody's creating their identity. And that's the first stick that our parents have used against millennials, that, oh, we are not getting married because like I'm focused on me, right? Everybody says that. So that focus has become even more laser focused right now for Gen Z, where they are really focused on themselves. Like, we were focused, but we didn't think about our pronouns, right? We just took what we got. Yeah. But the fact that they have this environment that promotes self identity and exploration, when will you have time to think about somebody else? So that could. Yeah.
I also think they should take communication as like person to person communication as a course in college.
Yeah,
because I do feel like a lot of people of Gen Z don't know how to communicate.
We're
not online.
waiting for like a solid 1 star on this episode from a Gen Zer.
I know, not to come down on Gen Z.
Honestly, I was thinking we should bring in a Gen Z.
That's gonna make us look so fucking old, Julien.
And she's like, tell us about you.
Tell us about you.
Snapper.
How do you do? Let me take my notes on my book pad, on my little pull in my paper. Do you feel like so if you had to choose millennial dating, Gen Z dating, which one do you think is easier?
Oh my gosh. So millennial dating. So am I having a conversation about like dating another millennial or dating a Gen Z?
No. So if you were 18 right now, would you rather date the way we did it? Or based on everything you find, would you think you would have been like, you know what? I would actually probably prefer dating the way Jay-Z do it.
Gen Z, hands down.
Oh, really?
Gen Z. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the reason for that? Just mostly of being who you are?
Just clarity of expectations, because I have seen what dating was in a millennial setting. So I know firsthand that I'm not going to voluntarily pick that. So just talking about slut shaming, right? Like back in the day, I mean, I never questioned the concept of slut shaming. I never questioned the concept of, casting couch, where I'm like, oh yeah, like women do sleep their way to the top. Like we use sex, but then I never questioned the fact that, well, let's talk about the predatorial man that made women do it. So, and women had all the right to explore their sexual agency and to live in that time, to have honest conversations. Who is not going to pick that? And before going on a date, I want to show my fire picture to this guy versus just like, showing up for the date. So I would 100% pick Gen Z dating without over millennial dating. Anything.
It seems like there's more freedom. It seems like you're just more free to be who you are.
A lot more freedom. Yeah. And that just gets better from generation to generation.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I like ending on a high note.
Yeah.
So Gen Z win. Gen Z,
listen, just don't cancel us. Like, we love you.
Yeah.
No, I really do.
Us on TikTok.
Yeah.
That's actually fascinating. I'm so glad you brought all of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, though.
I just don't know anything about them. It's crazy,
Yeah, no, you really don't.
What's the name of the book that you wrote?
It's called The Current Collegiate Hookup Culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where can we find it? Everywhere?
You can find it in Rowman and Littlefield. That's my publisher. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes and Noble. On a desperate day, you can find it on a Walmart. You can find it everywhere. But if you do get in touch with me, I will send you a free chapter on me. So please get in touch. I would love to share my experience and my research on Gen Z, because we need a rehauling of this hookup culture idea that we have in our head.
It's mostly for the parents of Gen Z, I guess. You guys can get educated thanks to your book.
Thank you.
Without asking weird questions to their kids.
Yeah, like you tell me. Were you on Grindr last night?
Tell me every sexual step you've ever made.
Yeah.
Let somebody else do the work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Are you Dr. Aditi or Dr. Paul? What do you prefer?
Aditi is brilliant. Please don't call me Dr. Paul. Like that just makes
Dr. Paul. Dr. Paul Aditi. Thank you.
1,000 years old right now. I'm really trying to mesh with the Gen Z. I'm using my retinol every night, so it's not working.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Are you on TikTok? Are you on social?
I am a lurker on TikTok. I haven't produced anything, but I am on Instagram. My handle is I am Aditi Paul. I have a LinkedIn, like a boomer. I have my Facebook. You can find me anywhere with Aditi Paul.
Well, thank you so much, Aditi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. I loved my time here.
I mean, a PhD with a personality. For real.
I wish she was my
She made
teacher.
me genuinely laugh. Like she.
Yeah. What a cool teacher.
We are the taint generation.
We are the taint generation.
That's what got me.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a taint,
perfect.
actually.
It's actually a great analogy.
It is.
The butthole and the ball sack. That's us.
Okay. You didn't have to take it there, but
that's what a taint is.
I understand. Leave it to you to kill a joke, man. Leave it to you to kill a joke.
Right? You don't have a taint. Women don't have a taint.
What? I don't know if I do. I don't know is it a man or a woman thing?
I think it's a women thing. Oh, I think it's a man thing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I've never heard a girl say, "Oh, he licked my."
Is this something that we Google? Can I ask the Google machine?
You can ask Google machine, but I don't think so.
Siri, do men or women have taints?
Google's not good.
I got tainted love.
Yeah, Google doesn't know. Just, you know what?
Both men and women have one.
How about you ask Jared? He's a doctor. He will know if.
I'll ask him. That'll be my first question to him whenever he gets home. Not like, how are you?
No.
Jared, how did work go?
Let's go. Do I have a taint?
Jared. Hey, J Bear. Do I have a taint as well, or
perfect?
Is it just for the men folk? All right.
No, honestly, I'm so glad we brought her on. She was awesome. And,
yeah.
Actually kind of learned a lot. I used to be a little bit of a Gen Z hater. Now I kind of like them more.
I feel like they're maybe dare I say a little more evolved than we are.
I think they are. I think we're the old fucks here.
I know. I hate admitting that.
You know.
Oh God.
But
my day's ruined. All right. So that's it. That's it, right? And then we'll see you. We'll see you next week.
All right.
A Huda Media Production.